Now, I oddly had a higher expectation for this movie once I watched the trailer and saw who was all involved, but sadly, before we get into it, I have to say, the only favorite movie of mine involving Kevin Hart and a plane is Soul Plane. What's going on, Flicks Talkers? Welcome back to another movie review, this time for 2024's Lift. Now, this film is coming out on January 12th, 2024, and big shouts out first and foremost to Netflix for allowing me to watch a screener copy in advance so you guys can get this review today. And the quick synopsis for Lift is: a master thief is wooed by his ex-girlfriend and the FBI to pull off an impossible heist with his international crew on a 777 passenger flight from London to Zurich. All right, now let me get this out of the way. First and foremost, the only reason I really wanted to check this film out, one, it is directed by F. Gary Gray, who did some of my favorite movies that I grew up on, including Friday, Set It Off, and Straight Outta Compton, just to name a few. So I was like, here's a competent director that knows how to develop some good characters. He's done a few action movies. What could go wrong? And two, I really wanted to see Kevin Hart in a non-comedic role. And we're gonna find out by the end of this review if he pulled it off for me or not. So before we get into it, guys, if you do appreciate movie reviews like this, let me know by hitting that big thumbs up to support the channel, and consider subscribing today for more reviews, reactions, and other film-related videos. And as always, my reviews are always spoiler-free. Okay, so if you guys are new to my channel, my reviews go as followed. I kind of give you the good, the bad, the ugly, but just kind of in an unfiltered, just pouring out of my brain, pouring out of my mouth type of mode. I just give you guys some word vomit of what I remember from watching this film, and some of the fun points, and then the not so fun points, once again, just mixed throughout. So going back to Kevin Hart, someone that's a huge topic of discussion, especially watching that Cat Williams interview for me. Oh my God, that's for a whole nother video that I won't even touch upon. But Kevin Hart is known as the funny man. And I will say, I did enjoy a lot of early Kevin Hart work. Once again, I had referenced Soul Plane, a not so good movie, but it was definitely a movie of its time that just played on a lot of stereotypes. It was very quirky, very terrible CGI. I mean, we're talking about hopping lowrider 747 jets, like, who could do that? But once Kevin Hart's performances and movies started to roll out, I definitely felt, and I think a lot of people in the community felt, that Kevin Hart is really one note. I mean, you kind of know what you're gonna get. A lot of height jokes, a lot of I'm the small pup with a big bark, and that's kind of where it ends with him. Though I really do enjoy movies like Ride Along or even Central Intelligence, I think he's good with a partner. He plays off of other people well. So when I saw we were introduced to a heist style movie, which aren't really my forte, I understand it's all about tech and flashy gadgets and locations, which we get a lot of in this movie. It was to be expected right off the gate when I hit play. I think that's really the selling point of this movie, and that's who this movie is for someone that really wants to see the glitz and glamours of the world watching it from your couch. And we get that. F. Gary Gray does a beautiful job of drone shots. Pretty much anywhere that has a nice location, you're gonna see in this movie. Also, going back to all the sexy tech gadgets, they start throwing a lot of technical jargon at you that the most common movie viewer isn't going to understand, but you're like, okay, that sounds kind of good. I'm eating my popcorn. I'm just kind of here for the ride. So you don't really question much. You just see that things are happening once they're building this whole heist. So it's really easy to not question along the way what's even happening in the story. I can't really call where I've seen it before, but the premise itself is you have Interpol, FBI on your ass, and they use you and your team to stop this international terrorist, or else guess what? They're going to pin some old charges on you. You're going to jail for life. To me, it's a very cookie cutter and paper thin plot, but in the end, this movie was actually pretty entertaining. But I digress. Let's get into the middle. Let's get into the meat and potatoes before I jump to the end of my final conclusion of this movie. So Kevin Hart's performance as Cyrus. We get serious Kevin Hart, and I think he's someone that's really trying to break that mold once again of the comedic relief, which I swear to God, maybe 90% of this movie, you don't hear a joke from Kevin Hart, which is unheard of. In this film, they leave all the comedy beats to Billy Magnuson. You guys saw him in Game Night. He's actually like the same character in Game Night. I'm not going to go over the full cast because you know what? They were very unlikable, and that's kind of the downfall of movies like this. They throw so many characters at you that we're supposed to see as very important people. I mean, you got the master of disguise, you have the hacker, you have the code breaker when it comes to the safe, you have all these people that are involved, and they all look young and sleek and sexy, and right? Except for Vincent D'Onofrio. He is very seasoned. I love him. What is he even doing in this movie? He's supposed to be the master of disguise, which I can appreciate, but he's the best actor in this group. He just really didn't seem to fit this 20-year-old something group of people. And in somewhat of a twist, Sam Worthington is in this movie as an FBI agent or a higher up, I forget his rank, but he's somewhat of a villain, at least the way he's presented and the way he talks, and he was a very unlikable villain as well. And some would argue that's the whole point of a villain, but he's not supposed to really be a villain. He's supposed to be on the good guy's side. Kind of annoying and cringe when it comes to the dialogue. And we have the actress playing Abby, and I'm gonna put her name up right here because I feel so bad butchering names I can never pronounce. I actually liked her. I thought she was a good counterpart to Kevin Hart. So they're supposed to have this past relationship that was like really a temporary fling. We're talking about they only really were together for like 5 days. They make a whole joke about it. It's not even a full week, it's a business week, which is like, okay, I can get behind that. And by the end of this movie, I felt that she was a stronger counterpart once again in the action and dramatic role than Kevin Hart was. When we saw Kevin Hart fighting, he wasn't even fighting, he was wrestling with these guys, and we get a lot of downward camera angles because I can only imagine he got the Tom Cruise treatment of filming at a downward angle to make them look taller than what they are. But all in all, this movie is very formulaic of a typical heist movie. If you guys have seen like a Ocean's 11, we introduced to all of our sexy team once again. We get a huge chunk of this movie, like 30-40 minutes of how we're gonna go through with our plan, what are possibly some of the things that could go wrong, and yada yada yada, which then leads to the plane scenes. And we know if you don't have some good money behind you, a good plane scene can turn bad like that. And oh my god, going back to Soul Plane, some of the CGI for this plane or green screen involved while filming some of these scenes definitely reminded me of Soul Plane back from the early 2000s. Now, when they film the inside of the plane as it's kind of, 360 nosediving and doing all this wild shit, that's cool because you get to see the actors just being flung around, the bad guys slamming the walls and whatnot. That's cool. All that stuff I can definitely appreciate, especially all the stuntmen involved. It's just one of those movies where you're like, if they would have spent a little more time and effort in the budget of the CGI instead of, I'm sure, going to a lot of these actors and the cameos paychecks, it would have been a little bit of a cleaner watch. And the final payout of this movie, the third act, the very end, which I don't even know if this guy is advertised in the trailer, Reno is like the big international terrorist that we're supposed to stop. And they do a good job of introducing how menacing he could be, but they don't follow up on any of that stuff, so you don't really fear this guy. But at like the last 5 minutes of the movie, he has a cool one-liner and you get to see how menacing he is, but then at that point you don't even really care. And of course it leaves off on a cliffhanger where you're like, okay, yeah, Ocean's 12. So all in all, this movie is super forgettable for me. So I think that being said, I'm gonna give Lift from 2024 a solid 2 out of 5. I'm not saying this movie was terrible, it just wasn't for me. So you guys let me know in the comments below, do you guys plan to see Netflix's Lift coming out this Friday, January 12th, 2024? You guys let me know once again. Are you looking forward to a more serious role from a Kevin Hart, or do you want him to stick in the comedy lane? You guys let me know once again in the comments below. And if you guys did appreciate my thoughts and review, let me know by hitting that big thumbs up to support the channel, and consider subscribing today for more. All right, Flix Talkers, I'll see you on the next one. I'm gone. Peace.